very good morning to you, Professor Barbato, and thanks for joining me this morning for this fireside chat conversation. I would like to tell our viewers that this conversation will cover the energy ecosystem in Switzerland and India from a technical expert's perspective. Professor Barbato, before we begin, please go ahead and introduce yourself and your research along with your area of expertise.
Thank you very much, Mr. Castellino, for this invitation. My name is Maurizio Barbato. I am professor at SUPSI, that is the University of Applied Science and Arts of Southern Switzerland, so the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland. I belong to the Department of Innovative Technologies, and my institute is the Mechanical Engineering and Materials Technology Institute. I am head of the Thermofluidynamic Lab that counts 9 researchers. Our activity of research is linked with solar receivers, thermal energy storage, CAES systems, and also district heating. Just to speak 2 words about myself, I am an aeronautical engineer by formation. I have a PhD in chemical engineering. I am 57 years old. I have 3 daughters, and I am in Switzerland since I'm an Italian citizen and also Swiss citizen, and I am here since 2000. And my collaboration with my university started in 2005. And let's say my involvement in energy heavily started in 2007, let's say.
Thanks for that lovely introduction, Professor Barbato. So moving on to our main set of questions, I would like to begin by asking that if you could speak to someone about the future of energy storage solutions and technologies, what would you like to ask?
Oh, that's a very nice question, because it's like having someone that has the crystal ball, you know, in which we can look what is in the future. Let's start from what we have today. Let's say, if we want to look at the system of storage energy, for example, today, the amount of energy we can store is around 5 terawatt hours. And the interesting thing is that 96% of this storage belongs to pumped hydro. So hydroelectric plants that can pump, water uphill, and all the rest is, some small percentage of batteries, a small percentage of thermal energy storage that is mainly, located in concentrated solar power plants. So the question I would ask to, let's say, this magician that has this crystal ball, I would say, how do you see already in 10 years from now, these percentages, how they will change and how we will move? If we look, to reports that make a prevision or make a forecast of what will occur in the next years, for example, looking at 2030, we know that the capacity of storage could become triple, so aiming at 15 terawatt hours of storage. And in that, obviously, the percentage of pumped hydro should, decrease up to 50%. Batteries should increase very much, and especially in the electrical vehicles field. And the rest will be, thermal energy storage linked with concentrated solar power, because that is, a part of this technology that will become quite important for dispatchability of renewable energy. And the thing is, this is what we expect. So I would like to ask if this is what we will have in 2030 and what we will have in 2050, because we will move even further more inclusion of renewables, and renewables are not stable sources of energy production, so they are fluctuating depending on the meteorological conditions and also the environment. And we have to also cope that with climate change, because also hydropower will change probably in the future. So the question will be quite tough to be answered. I mean, if this is a vision that we can have, it's not very clear at the moment, but for sure we will need much more system to store energy, large scale, so utility scale, but also local. And so a vision could be also how for example, the prosumers will evolve. Producer and consumers that can produce energy, store, for example, and also sell. How locally this type of personalities will evolve. So this will be the question I would ask.
Thank you so much, Professor, for giving me a future's perspective on the landscape of energy. Now coming to the future, the European Commission has announced plans to move towards a net zero emissions future. And this will lead to both like huge investments in the public and private sector. Can you share or shed some light and your thoughts on this goal and this mission by the European Commission?
Yeah, that's really, let's say, a big maneuver. I mean, there are quite ambitious objectives. Obviously, as you can imagine, the major objective is zero CO2. Zero CO2 is something that is, wanted, and this means having all activities related with CO2 production that goes to zero, net zero, let's say. And one field that has to be attacked is obviously energy production, but the second one to be attacked will be mobility. So electrical vehicles, and this will be, will have a exponential growth. This is something that we have to take into account, because it's something that will change. As I told you even before, with the storage system in the future, also this will represent a big part of the storage system, of this storage scenario. And then, it's not just that. It's the fact that today energy is quite simple to produce. I mean, there are no competitors with respect to fossil fuels in terms of, energy density, availability, and also logistic, for example. So producing energy in a different way could be a bit more difficult, and so also energy efficiency will be tackled, because reducing consumption will be another way to save, environment and save energy. And that will be another big objective that the community has in front of it. One point that is also relevant, if I think, it's that efficiency is widespread. So this means industry and all the rest of community, I mean, even buildings, etc. But industry has another main objective to tackle, that is enhanced production in terms of modernization of production systems, and also introduction of circular economy. Why? Because also raw material treatment and raw material extraction means energy, is related to energy. And that's another very important point that the European Community wants to tackle. And it's also something that is very much related with the environment. Let's say it's not just. I mean, the two things, energy and environment, are quite the two main pillars of this revolution, of this change. On the other side, also the investment will be done in a system that, linked with the bio environment, will try to absorb CO2. I mean, CO2 sinks, guaranteeing what is the biodiversity, or exploiting the natural resources, will be also pushed ahead, because this is also another resource that we have. And it's not just Europe that has to move in this direction. We know very well what happened in Australia last year with this big fire, and this made us losing a lot of capacity of CO2 absorption. And these things should be in some way repaired, even not just in Australia and by now, but in all other countries have to move in this direction. And the European community is moving this way also. So this is one of the objectives. Among the others, there is also rethinking the communities and rethinking cities, so to have smart cities, smart communities, so to optimize energy production, energy consumption, so to have even control of energy like electricity or heat controlled in a district manner, municipality, region, so that you can make the best usage of that and the best savings. And these are more or less the main actions, and you can envisage what is behind that. It's really a change. It's really something that has to be moved, and everything has to go in the same direction. Obviously, in this movement, the production of CO2 will not go net zero next year. So there will be production of CO2 in any case due to production of energy in conventional ways. For example, steel production, cement production will in any case produce CO2. So another big objective is to capture and store this CO2. And this is another big objective that the European community has. And I think that this is also a big challenge, because today, even though there are technologies, the scale of these technologies is still a bit behind what should be now. It should run faster. Yeah.
Thanks for that comprehensive answer and take on that question, Professor. So I'm going to pick on 2 points. One is the modernization of energy systems and carbon capture and storage. So in the case of India, which is a cost-sensitive economy, but it's also quite an energy-intensive economy. So can you tell us the advantages or disadvantages of the various energy storage systems or solutions and the role of energy modeling? Basically, how energy modeling can play a role in an energy-intensive economy like India.
Yeah. Let's start from this last point, for this one. I was part of, in the last 7 years, I was part of the Swiss Centers for Competence for Energy Research in Switzerland. And my role was principal investigator in one of these centers that was related with heat and electricity storage. And besides the obvious experimental part of this study, there was a large activity on modeling. And modeling was intended just starting from the component, the system, and then the environment. And today, it's quite important to figure out the scenarios. And modeling, it's today, especially because we have a lot of computational power, we can be really fast in evaluation. We have also optimization algorithms. We have approaches like neural networks that can make us explore a lot of scenarios. This makes us really powerful in making forecasts and also evaluating the effect that technology can have and the effectiveness of this technology, especially because we have to never forget that our society is based on competitiveness. So even though we could have the best system in the world, but this system is not competitive, and means when you place it on the market and the electricity market will answer, this is out of my view because it's too expensive, it's not, it's not in the standards we have, not with the prices we have, you can be sure that this will be not adopted easily, unless there will be some push from government, some incentives or things like that. So when you have to evaluate a solution that can even be technically perfect, you have to immerse this technology in an environment. And simulation tools allow you to do that. You can really evaluate, not just from the technical part, but also for the economical part, scenarios in which you can envisage where you can apply this technology or when you can apply this technology, or even if this technology is applicable in the market. For example, just to make you a practical example, we studied the AKS system, so compressed air energy storage systems exploiting thermal energy storage. This system can, achieve an efficiency, round-trip efficiency. Round-trip means energy in, energy out, electrical energy in, electrical energy out, of 75%. That is comparable with what we can have with pumped hydro, that is around 80%. But when you place a system like this one in an environment, you have to be sure that the price of this system will guarantee competitiveness. And in some market, this system was today not competitive. And so when you have to propose a system like that, who has to invest will be careful, because if the situation is not clear, or if the number are not the one expected, they will not invest. How can you solve that? Once you model it, you can show that to, let's say, investors, but also to politicians or to people that can move the politics and the government and the laws. And on that, you can say, okay, this is a relevant system. You see, you can show modeling what modeling says, and you can even promote initiatives that can incentive this. And comparing with other technologies, you can, for example, demonstrate that incentives can make this work. And so this is something that it's an example of really an usage and a real application of this modeling. Then obviously modeling can have different levels. I mean, I was speaking about this, but then you can go really to optimize systems, make the systems, for example, demonstrate the efficiency expected. Compressed air energy storage has just 2 plants in the world. There is Untorf and McIntosh that are just 2 working plants in active, and their efficiency is 53%, 53%. Not so high. So you can imagine that for the best one of the 2, that is McIntosh, almost half of the energy is lost when you load it. So with modeling, we demonstrated that passing through not a simple CAIS, but with an AKS, so a adiabatic CAIS system, the efficiency can be raised above 75%. And this makes a huge difference, especially when you have to see what we will apply in the future. So modeling is quite relevant in that. Yeah.
Thanks for that interesting take, Professor. And I'm going to pick on 2 points. So the importance of scenario planning, and of course, bringing about competitive solutions, right? Yeah. So in the case of India, as I mentioned, which is a cost-sensitive country, we expect optimum solutions at the minimum cost. So how do you think the role of innovative solar collectors for efficient and cost-effective solar thermal power generation will play out? And the previous part of this, the second part of the question previously asked was, can you tell us the advantages and disadvantages of the various energy storage systems? So you can tie in your answer for this question where you're trying to tell us about the solar collectors for efficient and cost-effective solar thermal power generation, and the different energy storage technologies.
Okay. Concerning the solar collectors, let's start from solar energy. Solar energy is today one of the, is the solution. If we say about solar energy, also wind is solar energy, so everything is involved. But when we try to collect directly the electromagnetic energy coming from the sun, Solar collectors are obviously the system to do that. When we say solar collector, we say utility scale systems, so concentrated solar power. Today, this technology, it's interesting to look at the parabola of this technology. This technology was in, let's say, beginning of 2000 was the technology that was thought the future of solar energy. I was participating to solar paces conferences, and this was, there was really a push after decades of dormant technology, dormant research in this field. But in the year 2000, this technology was ramping up and was seen as the best in the future. But then they came, the PV came at the utility scale, and especially the prices of PV were killing this technology. And so comparing the two, there was just one winner, undoubted winner, and this one was PV. Why? Because the costs were really going down. In 10 years, PV cost fall 85%. Can you imagine? It really a drop. They now can have prices that are comparable with fossil fuel prices, coal prices. Even, for example, in India, in which this is a particularly cheap energy production way, even there, PV is comparable with these prices. So you arrive to a bit more 3 cents of dollar per kilowatt hour produced. But then, what happened? That if you try to store energy from PV, you get in trouble. Because if you have utility scale production, you cannot store so easily. And store means having this energy available also when the sun is not shining. So dispatchability. And then concentrated solar power become again in the game, because concentrated solar power can guarantee dispatchability. So the convenience of this technology, after a certain moment of problematic view for the future, came back strong. And today, this is something that can really help in the energy. So is that convenient? Yeah, for the levelized cost of electricity is not so far from fossil fuels, and is competitive. So looking ahead, this has quite large chances, especially for dispatchability. As I told you before at the beginning of the talk, if we look at the future, also thermal energy storage is a part of the scenario of the future, and this thermal energy storage is related with CSP. Solar towers with CSP can guarantee really 24/7 energy production. This was done by Gemma Solar in Spain a few years ago. They were the first one to do really production for 24/7 in the month of July in summer. But this is something that can happen. And nevertheless, we know that photovoltaics will remain a strong force. And if this will be coupled with batteries or other systems to store electricity, even production of hydrogen, let's see, also this could be something that will occur in the future. Also, that will be a very, very interesting way of producing energy from the sun. But let me cite the last application, on the most modern application of solar in concentrated solar power, that is production of solar fuels. In this way, you produce solar fuel that stores energy, solar energy. So you do both things at once. You can have this interesting process, and there are new technologies that allow that this will be done quite effectively in the future. So there will be some new concentrated solar receivers that will allow to do that in the future quite effectively. And by the way, there is a company in Switzerland that is doing something like that. That is a spin-off for ETH. That is called Synelion, if I can say the name of this company. Yeah.
Well, that's some great knowledge for us, Professor. And Now, just to add to what you've already said, is India is still trying to figure out the optimum solution when it comes to sustainability, energy storage, right? So do you think that like a country like Switzerland can maybe afford or have the flexibility to try out different solutions, trial, error, and then pick out the best? In the case of India, because the market factors being so complex, it might not offer us the flexibility. So how do you suggest that technologists and policymakers arrive to a common ground, whereas one technology does not kind of cannibalize the other, and both are allowed to coexist if they are good for the energy economy of the nation?
In the future, especially for storage, is not a one-horse race. There will be no a winner, just one winner. If you probably, if you have an interview with people dealing with batteries, they will think, okay, batteries will win. If you speak with me, I will say something. That person will say something else, and there are different winners. But the solution is in the mix. And this mix will depend on the region, really the location. I mean, India, it's a quite wide country, so you can have solution that can depend on the regionality. I mean, you can have, for example, some technology that are best suited for some regions. For example, pumped hydro, because you have the topology and topography that allows you to do that. But you can even exploit, for example, adiabatic gas in some other regions. And technologies like batteries can be exploited, especially when you have detached production. You have, for example, communities or a location in which you can have local production. In that case, batteries can play a big role and probably the best. So in Switzerland, we are doing some, we did some research. We did some exploration also for different technologies. And at the time being, there are some winners, but especially for our country, let's say, obviously, pumped hydro, it's the winner, absolute winner, but we are trying to explore also the possibility to use adiabatic gas here. Batteries will play a big role because we know that's in production of PV and storing of energy produced by PV, that's the way to do it. And also for the electrical vehicles, this will be the solution. And also the integration of batteries of electrical vehicles into the grid, because we can use these systems as really storage system also for the grid, not just for the vehicle per se, but for including all these vehicles. They will guarantee a huge battery for communities, for example. And so let's say, I will not promote one technology. I would say on the ground of the research and the result of the research we did, we should bring ahead the main road that have been drawn. These roads are there, and they are valid with different level of validity depending on the location and on the application. For example, before, one of the questions was pro and con of these different systems, and now when you choose one of these systems, you have to know about that. For example, if you consider pumped hydro, we have large capacities, large power, so you have utility scale systems, but low energy density. So you need huge space. I mean, huge space means not just land, but volume. And that's one point. If you have topography that guarantees that, you can do it. Otherwise, you cannot. I mean, you can imagine that this is less, it's much diffused. It's very diffused in Switzerland because we have a lot of mountains, but countries that do not have so much. For example, Germany was exploring CAES as a first attempt to store energy because they do not have so many mountains. So they had to look to something different. Batteries, okay, different kind of batteries are available, as you know. Lithium-ion batteries are now seems to be the winners. Why? Because they have high energy density. They have also long lasting life. I mean, with respect to lead acid, absolutely. So in that, we can say that this, for specific application, especially mobility application and small storage application, they are the best. But obviously, when we speak about utility scale, probably the cost and the also the size is not really suitable. So it's something that is it's a field in research in which, as I told you before, modeling can help very much. You can really make model scenario, and look for the best technology to be applied. Something that this could be something that helps. So my answer at the end, there is not a winner. I cannot say that if there is a winner, but it's a synergetic effort between the different technologies.
Oh, thanks for that comprehensive answer on the technical questions, Professor. Now, moving away from the technical question, I would like to ask you a policy level, or rather a political question. So what type of action plan would you recommend to ensure that the participating stakeholders from the public, private, and academic sectors collaborate actively in ensuring that India achieves its rising energy demand, but sustainably? So keeping in mind that India has a strong reliance on thermal power generation and a lot of people employed in the strong coal sector, especially the publicly run Coal India Limited. So you see, the stakes are quite high. How do you ensure parity in such a complex economy?
Yeah, that's you said the word parity. That's the word. As we said before, competitiveness, it's the winner. If you make competitive a new way of production of energy, this will win by itself. There are energy revolutions. If you look back in the history, energy revolution, were just driven by that competitiveness. When a source of energy was more competitive than another one, this was the winning. Was no way. Okay, but there are obviously, when you speak about competitiveness, there are technical issues, costs, but there is also an incentive policy. Probably a recent report showed that fossil fuels have incentives that are 4 times higher than those given to renewable energies. Probably this policy has to be inverted, and it's something that is, I mean, all countries do that. Probably if we have to send a message to policymakers, we have to say, okay, look, this is something that doesn't work anymore. But it's not economically, because economically it can still work, but probably environmentally cannot work anymore. We have to shift this paradigm to move towards something that is much more environmentally friendly. And today, watch out, environmentally friendly doesn't mean to be green or having a snob attitude. It's something that is related with spending money, because the climate crisis will cost much more if we do not invest fast in trying to fight this crisis. If we wait, we will spend much more. So the message to be passed should be: watch out, stop. We know that business as usual, it's like this, but let's forget about what we did up to today. Let's go look ahead in 10 years, 20 years, and see something that can be completely different. But let's plan this thing, this change, starting from today. Because if we wait, as things can go in the next 10 years, probably we will be too late. Because we are growing 2-3 parts per million of CO2 per year, and we are fast fast going to 450 parts per million, that scientists say that it's really a critical point for our planet that can really bring us big problems. I mean, big problems for society means high costs. I know that politics is difficult because politics looks to what people think today, but instead the role of politicians should be act today, thinking to tomorrow. So the action of today should be taught for what will happen, not tomorrow, but maybe today we have to think in 10 years, 20 years. And so this could be a big change. And this, it's a chain effect, because if you, for example, incentive some kind of energy production, people are invited to use that and to invest in that, or to choose, and this will drive by itself the technology toward that direction. So it's like we have to light a spark that is difficult to light, but then this will start a fire that will go by itself. But we have to start a spark, and this is the most difficult thing today, because I tell you, Mr. Castellino, it's much more comfortable to stay as we stay now. It's, fossil fuel are comfortable, fossil fuel are available. As you correctly said, your country is dealing very much on coal. And I understand that. That's it's a strategic choice. It's a choice done for the country. And it's also something that is built on your, availability of resources. No problem, absolutely no questions. But the future probably will not accept that we will continue this way. And so be prepared to change will make much less, will give us much more advantages than disadvantages. Because otherwise we have to be working in emergency with red light, blinking, and worries and anxiety. It should not be like this. We should act in time to not fall in these disasters, let's say, because some envisage of what we can have are already there. And this is not something that is regional, but it's unfortunately it's global.
Fantastic, Professor. So from what I pick from this is scenario planning and futures foresight needs to be implemented sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So,
and also, if I can say a few more words, not excluding any solution at the moment, just being open and see what is available and not closing any roads at the moment. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because we have to really use what is available and even invest in something that is promising. I mean, it's a risk, but it's, results can be quite important for us.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Well, you've answered all my questions very, very comprehensively with a lot of insight. And I would like to thank you for this enlightening conversation. Hopefully, we can work closely in bringing our two countries, India and Switzerland, together at the research level. And yes, looking forward to collaborations on the energy technologies side of things. So I really appreciate this time and effort from your end. Thank you so much, Professor.